Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today, I'm joined by Nick Manning, who is a golfer at Fordham University, who is also from my hometown. It's great to have him on the show. Nick, welcome to Just Say Guay.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so before we get into it, you could just introduce yourself. Obviously, I said you go to Fordham, but some other things that people should know before we get going.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Nicholas Manning. I'm just wrapped up my freshman year at Fordham University. I play in the men's golf team, and from just outside of Boston, Bedford, Mass, which is also your hometown. And right now, I'm just kicking off my summer schedule.
Yeah, so obviously during the pandemic, I know golf courses just opened up a bit, but obviously during March and April, you definitely wanted to be out there getting ready and preparing for what's next. How did the pandemic affect you, and how did you adjust?
Yeah, it was not an ideal time. So I was actually down in Florida practicing. We were getting ready for the start of our season, and we had our spring training trip. I was just about to start, and then all this stuff goes down. So I actually, I had to come home, and there was a month long period where you can't go outside, you couldn't practice, couldn't play any of that. But luckily enough, I have a launch monitor we have a little setup in my garage with a big screen I can hit into. So I was able to actually keep the game going during the quarantine period. But it was just unfortunate that we had to cut down that trip in Florida because we were really making some good progress.
Yeah, so I've read some of the rules and how the government established rules on how golfing can exist. It's good thing for you that you can socially distance and still play. But what's different about playing in the pandemic than playing last summer or even your season?
Yeah. So the main thing is that the cups are different than what they normally are. So normally just flag stick cup, you can putt right in, take the flag out, or leave it in. But now we have kind of a situation where the ball can only go down about an inch or so, and in some cases, not at all. The cups are raised, so that's just affected. It's my mental game. Honestly, it's a lot more to deal with than you would expect. Being used to seeing the ball go in the hole versus it not being able to. But as far as that, not much has changed. I really think we can play competitively under all these rules. Um, I think things are going fine right now, but the really big loss is just the practice facilities, which I expect to open up soon because, again, you can use those safely and abide by all the rules. So I really don't see a reason for them to stay closed too much longer.
Yeah, I think it's good timing too, because even if you play competitively or just for fun, it's such a good game to come around during the summer. So, how did you first get into golf? I know a lot of your family members really like the game, but how did you get into it specifically?
Yeah, so like you said, my family's been in the game for a while. My great grandfather was a pro golfer, actually played in the U.S. Open, and then that kind of translated down to my grandfather, my father, and then to me. So I was around the game growing up. I always loved it, but I honestly, it was just a thing I did. It was just my kind of niche, my sport I was best at. Played a lot of sports growing up, but golf was always my number one. And then played throughout high school. I know I always wanted to play college golf, and then it really kicked into high gear when I got to Fordham. And I made some decisions about my golf game, and I really just saw my future and saw what I could do, and that just made me drive harder. But as far as getting into the game, it was just my dad, who's been my coach and been my mentor for so long, kind of just keep me on the path, letting me create my own destiny and not overdoing it in any aspect. So he's really avoided having me be burnt out or anything like that. So just played it growing up, and never really felt like I was just a kid out there just playing golf. It was always serious to me, and I'm happy the way it's turned out.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. So clearly, you've had some family members you've looked up to, but I think any successful athlete, they also have some pro players that they look up to. Especially golf, Tiger Woods, Bubba Watson, Phil Mickelson. Did you have any golfers that you looked up to that, you wanted to strive to be like?
Yeah, definitely. Growing up, it was more Ricky Fowler just because he was really, a hot player coming on the tour, lots of flair to him. But as I developed as a player, it really turned more into Rory McIlroy, and he still is my number one golf idol, just because he embodies, what I believe in the game. He's very strict on his fitness. He's had highs, he's had lows, and it hasn't always been easy for him. That may sound a little crazy, because he's been number one player in the world, but he's lost the Masters in the final 9 holes on a Sunday, and he's had these comebacks, and he's had multiple moments in his career where people thought he wouldn't recover, much like Tiger. And I unfortunately kind of missed the Tiger craze. I was a little too young for him, but it's been great to see that recently, and even he's become more of an idol to me just because of how he's been able to turn nothing into just a career again. I'm seeing that second Hall of Fame career coming out right now, which is just great.
Yeah, it was awesome for sure to see him win last year. I mean, at school, we have a place where you can watch sporting events, like a kind of an on-campus bar, and it was just completely packed. All those people who remember how good he was as a little kid, and now to see him win. So obviously you had a great career at Bedford High School, got better as it went on. How were you able to get better each season, given the fact that, most of the year you can't play golf because there's snow on the golf courses? How are you able to do that?
Yeah, so basically it's just, honestly, in the winters, it's just maintaining and addressing the big issues during the winter time. Because when you're in your competitive season, which is spring through fall, you can't be making crucial swing adjustments or anything along that nature. So you can use the winter to really rebuild every year, which is quite unique because, those who might be able to play all year almost suffer from that, because trying to play golf while working on a swing change is basically impossible. So I was able to, use the months where I couldn't score and couldn't play competitively to really build on, what I had done the year before, whether that was gaining distance or straightening out my swing plane, stuff like that. So I just worked with swing coaches throughout the winters, and the main thing was just like the drive every year. The way I'm built is I can't be anything but number one, which is kind of arrogant, may rub people the wrong way. But I think, I was afraid every year going back that I wouldn't be the number one player every year. And that just motivated me to find different ways to improve. And the mental aspect of my game is, never capping out, you never believing that you can't get better. So just, practicing over the winter is just that excitement and eagerness building towards the spring just allows you to get better throughout the months where you can't necessarily play competitively.
That's a great mentality to have. So, obviously after high school comes college, and I assume you had a lot of options. You picked Fordham. I can see why. I've been to Fordham. I toured there. It's a beautiful school. You're in New York City. You're definitely having a great golf experience so far. Were there other schools in the mix as well?
Absolutely. Golf is kind of unique because you do a lot of your own, recruiting type situation. So I could really decide where I wanted to go based off of what fit my criteria. But, the main schools that were on my list were always Boston College. And then I had some idea of some school down the South. But as I, got older and older, that turned into schools like Boston College, University of Rhode Island, UConn, schools like that. And then one of my biggest schools that was different to what I was used to was Rollins College down in Florida. I was really looking into Rollins, and they have just an outstanding program, arguably the best D2 golf program in the country. But reality of the fact is that Fordham fit me the best and allowed me to do the most that I, wanted to do with my college experience, but also with my college golf. I knew I could go in there and play my freshman year, which is very uncommon in college golf. You're used to the teams being basically made up of, juniors and seniors. And I didn't want to take a gap year to play out of school like BC or URI. I wanted to get in there right away and start playing. And Fordham gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think it's very important to just, take advantage of your time because, it goes by pretty fast. So obviously I see with people at school being a student athlete, not the easiest thing to do. It's very challenging. It's demanding to do academics and play a sport. Two full-time jobs
Yeah.
pretty much. What was something that, you experienced that you did not expect to happen as a student athlete?
Yeah, so that's a good question. This is gonna sound a little basic, but honestly, just how tough it is to balance both things. I'm in the Gabelli School of Business at Fordham University, which is, essentially like playing a sport. It's very demanding. Um, and that mix of golf, I go into Fordham and the first 10 weeks I'm traveling. It's just like you can't prepare for that. You really can't. And it was just the grind of doing homework, late at night and waking up at 5 a.m. the next day to go and play, or even like finding a way to get that assignment done on a 7-hour van ride home where you're just absolutely wiped. Um, it's difficult. And one thing you get with golf that you really don't get with other sports is even our practices. They take 6.5 hours. It's not like we can do a morning lift and then you can go back and such. And scrimmage later on the day or what have you with some other sports. We have to travel off of campus to go to a golf course that may be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour away and then play for 5 hours in practice. So you get home at 8 or 9 at night at times, and you just, you have 4 hours of homework to put under your belt. As a freshman, that was difficult. It was just so different than what I was used to in high school. And, really nothing can prepare you for that. So that was honestly just the biggest curveball. Yeah, that was a tough one to deal with. And then the other thing I'll mention was just the responsibility of performing for a team week in and week out. I started every week. I felt like I had a responsibility to my team to perform every week. It's not like I can go and an individual event. If it's not my week, it's not my week, and I go home. I owe it to that team. I owe it to the program. I owe it to my teammates to perform every week. So that was a big burden I faced that I wasn't used to in the past. So that was a tough adjustment, but I'm happy with the way things worked out.
Yeah. So speaking of how it worked out really well, there were challenges, but you also won team MVP as a freshman. Obviously, that's the biggest thing that sticks out. What else went well, in your opinion, besides that?
Yeah, so I would say I was more consistent than I had imagined. When we were qualifying to see who would start, we were playing on a wild golf course, very quirky, meaning that unexpected things would happen. Golf courses, bad bounces, tough angles, and such. And I shot the same score. I shot 476s in a row that put me, in a spot to where I could start at a difficult golf course. And that's normally not like me. I'm normally pretty hot and cold. Like if I'm going, I'm going, and if I'm not, I take my 4 or 5 over and go home. But to just go there and do my job at the beginning was nice, and then to carry that through the majority of the season felt really good. Because like I said, that week in and week out performing is, I was expecting to have some off weeks, which I had off rounds at times, but for the most part, I could take a positive round out of every tournament I played in, which was a really fun moment.
Yeah. So big thing that I think some athletes have is when they succeed really early, it's hard to keep that momentum going. How do you make that approach that you think, oh, I can definitely achieve more? How do you keep it going?
Yeah, that is my big thing. I didn't necessarily have it easy. In junior golf, I was not really recognized as a strong player, which just motivated me, fueled my fire, and it still does to this day. I've constantly been doubted my entire career. Whether that's wanting to play golf at BC and not been given that opportunity right out of high school, having to take a gap year, or whether that's other people viewing me from the outside, not seeing all the work that goes in. I'm constantly have the mentality of being doubted. I've had a chip on my shoulder my entire career, and it's pushed me every single day, day in and day out, to just be the best I can be. And it's that constant greyhound chasing the rabbit at every single level. It will never be good enough for me, even if I make it to the level I want to go. It's just because it's impossible to be perfect in golf. So it's just that chasing that maximum performance just at every level just keeps me motivated. And I have constant notes in my phone of just things people have said about me, whether that's a newspaper article or whether that's even my coach at times. He's pushed me. My best tournament of the year came after my worst round of the year. He said, and my coach said in 20 years of coaching golf at Fordham, he's never had to start a player that had such a bad tournament as I did the week before. And normally it's by the numbers, but he used coach's discretion to start me. And that fueled my fire. And I went the next week and, I shot even par and set a freshman scoring record. So that really, that chip on my shoulder it's never gone away, and it's never going to.
Yeah, it's admirable that you can have that motivation and keep it going. So what is next year? I know we discussed this a little bit, but what are you pushing for this summer, with your training?
Yeah, so this summer is going to be one of my biggest summers comparable to what I've done in the previous years. First off, just because I'm now in a position to compete at a level I wasn't last year or the year prior, and that looks a little bit different. So I have some tournaments coming up in June, some tournament qualifiers that are quite legitimate. So that first qualifier we mentioned was a pre-qualifier for the Travelers Championship, which is a PGA Tour event, and that field is just, even in the qualifier, is just outstanding. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I have more events that I've normally tried to qualify in the past, but now they're turning into an event that I'm going to compete in and be in contention at, which is the U.S. Amateur, the Massachusetts Amateur, and the U.S. Open. I'm lucky enough to have some good U.S. Open qualifying sites I'm competing in this year. I've played in all of them, all three of the spots, whether that be Eastward Ho, Century, or Winged Foot. We played Century and Winged Foot for school, and Eastward Ho happens to be my home course. So I'm now in a position to compete and qualify for these events and really just get myself in that competitive environment that, I've obviously been in before, but not to the level that I'm striving for this year. And it's an exciting time because I'm now at the level that, I can do some damage at these events.
Yeah, it's awesome, especially for how long you worked for them. So last question, obviously golf can come back because of the fact that there is social distancing. Florida definitely has a different mentality with the government. Do you think this is a sign that sports professionally can slowly come back, or do you think that golf is this sort of a special case given that how the game is played? Because in my opinion, I don't think the NBA and the NHL can finish their season. I think it's just too hard. And baseball,
Yeah.
It's social distancing, but do you think golf's just a special case?
Golf is a special case in the aspect that it's gonna come back next month, which is exciting for me. And the measures that they're implementing on the PGA Tour are very legitimate. They're testing every single player going in and out. They're chartering private jets for the players to come in and out of the venue, and they're taking extreme precautions that even carry down to my qualifier. But as far as other sports, it's just tough to believe that they can come back, anytime before, end of the year. I just don't see them finishing their season, which is just unfortunate for those, high risk sports like basketball. And it's just tough to see that. But I would definitely say that golf is, lucky enough and able to take necessary precautions to allow them to come back so soon. And I think the fans, aren't going to be able to come back for a good amount, even on the PGA Tour. But the biggest thing is that, golf is outside. That airflow outside compared to, what you see in some stadiums that are just packed in like sardines is just tough to imagine that they're going to come back anytime soon.
Yeah, and I think that, obviously the NFL draft happened. That was kind of a sporting event, but I think, if a major play comes back for golf, I think the ratings are going to be through the roof because people are just including myself dying for sports. But Nick, I wish you the best of luck. We'll stay in touch, and thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.